Good evening from College Park, Maryland. It's the Illini Inquirer podcast victory edition as Illinois gets the upset victory as 13.5-point underdogs. They go into Maryland and win 27-24 on Caleb Griffin's game-winning 43-yard field goal. Joey Wagner, we have so much to talk about here as Illinois plays its best game of the season, and it was good enough to beat one of the best opponents on their schedule so far. I think Penn State's the best team. Kansas is up there, but Maryland is 5-1 coming into this game, had beat every Power 5 opponent so far except Ohio State. And Illinois escapes College Park with a victory. They go east at 2-4, 2-5 like they were 2 years ago. And it does them good as they escape with an upset victory. Kind of has some Penn State flavor. That Penn State team was ranked number 6, Maryland not ranked. But Joey Wagner, go ahead. Do your gloating.
I just thought you were going to give me credit. It did. It felt. I didn't think they were going to win. I don't want to pretend like that, but
you called it, Joey. You should come on here and said I called it.
Well, I don't want to do that because I predicted a loss. But like there were Penn State vibes. Like this team, the same way when they went to Penn State in 21, kind of just like a not really treading water very well team. Couple bad losses. The vibes around were just down, and they go east. And I did think there was a value of just getting away from the conversation and just going somewhere where there's just you guys. And I asked Johnny Newton about that during the week, and it paid off. I mean, it ultimately proved right. So I had Penn State 21 vibes coming in, though I did not think they'd win. And then in that last drive, I had Indiana 22 vibes, where like you played. I thought they outplayed Maryland, much like they did Indiana. And then that last drive, I thought was going to get them. That was huge for them, man. It really – it was a really, really big win for this team. I know you'll probably write about it. I would have to imagine we'll talk about it, but you could feel like a giant exhale when they were running off the field. And I thought that was a very noticeable and very real feeling.
There was huge relief because this had not gone well. This was the disaster of the first 6 weeks of the season for Illinois, right? And they didn't hide that. Like, it had gone poorly. They had played extremely poorly. But that tonight was the team we thought we were going to get. It wasn't always going to be pretty, Joey, but they played complementary football. They had a competent running attack that was better than the opponent. They won the trenches tonight, right? They had a good defense that held an explosive Maryland defense or offense to 24 points. The only other team that's done that is Ohio State, held them to 17 points. They let the other team make the mistakes, right? They didn't make a ton of huge mistakes in this game. They overcame a bad break. I want to put that out there. Like that interception on Luke Altmyer was not on Luke Altmyer. It looked like a defensive pass interference that the referees did not call. I don't know if they showed a replay on TV, but it was certainly he got there early on Casey Washington. And Brett Bielema outcoached Mike Loxley. He was a better game manager. We can get into some of those little things, Joey, but Illinois has enough talent to compete in the Big Ten. Maybe not enough to beat Penn State, but against the rest of the schedule, we thought, and that's why losing to Purdue by 25 points, losing to a terrible Nebraska team by 13 at home was so discouraging. But this is why you don't write an obituary on a season in October, because we've seen this happen before, and we knew the Big Ten would give a lot of opportunities, Joey, and it's going to give more opportunities. We'll dive into that here as we go along, because you win a game like this, you feel like you can win a lot of games, but the key to it was competent, clean football, and you gave yourself a chance in the fourth quarter, Joey.
Yeah, that's right. We thought going in, I think we said if Illinois got like 85 rushing yards from Fagan and Lawford, they would do backflips. They got 100. They got more than 100 from those guys. Like this, what we thought with Illinois, like they need to be able to run the football. They running the football, when that gets taken away, they just aren't built to throw it and throw it and throw it like that. And then the defense have sneakily been playing better for a couple of weeks. They've been put in really, really bad positions, and they've had flaws. Like, I don't want to say they were perfect, and the only reason they gave up points was because they were in bad positions, but they had been playing better. And when you don't have those terrible turnovers or miscues or along those lines, like you see what they were able to do. They were able to get off the field on third down. I don't have the stats, the third down numbers pulled up.
5 of 15?
Yeah.
Maryland was 5 of 15.
Yeah, Illinois was a few weeks ago, nearing 50%, allowing that. So you just – they stopped with the penalties. The turnovers outside of that interception, like the things that had been really getting in their way, they were able to clean up. We'll see if that carries over, but that was one they needed, and it's like a chance to finally find some momentum here.
Yeah, certainly was. And we're live on our YouTube channel. Thanks all of you for listening. Give us a like if you can while you're on this video. Subscribe to us. Hit the notifications bell so you can get all this stuff while you're doing it. And all you guys listening on the podcast later on, we really appreciate you. I want to get to Bielema here at some point here. Let's play a little bit of Bielema in the post game, and then we'll dive into some of the things we've brought up here so far, because there was so much relief. You saw Josh Whitman hug everybody as he usually does, but after I was right behind him, he gave a huge fist pump. Barry Illini probably was a guy that was feeling as good as anybody after this game. Wasn't a perfect game for him, but scoring 27 points on the road, having, not just the first drive that was successful in getting a touchdown, but to get it at the goal line, all those things, you saw him relieved. And I thought Brett Bielema looked relieved. Here's Brett Bielema after the game earlier today as Illinois gets the victory 27-24. Joey, not hearing it? All right, I'll get to it. I'll get to it here in a second. But I just, you feel good for those guys, Joey. Obviously, it's been a tough year for some of these players, and Brett Bielema here's
for our guys. I think the biggest thing, they've been through a lot, right? They've stuck together. They practiced extremely hard. The will this week, I thought was, as crazy as it is, I told them during the course of the week, everybody's trying to tell you why you can't. I want to tell you why you can. And, we had a good good practice Tuesday. I literally said, hey, I can't make you do anything, but I might watch a little film Tuesday night. And a lot of guys showed up. I think you play a team like that. Locks is a good coach. They're very well coached. They tell you things before the snap if you're willing to listen, right? And our guys are really locked into the game plan. I couldn't be happier for Barry Lundy at the end of the half there. Decided to talk me into going for it on the 4th and 1 there, and got it in. Not only got it, but got in the end zone. And that was kind of the will of that offensive line. Also, number 3, my CIP crew, my Central Illinois power with Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey. Very, 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 very happy with those guys. I literally told those guys today, hey, this is kind of a gritty type of day, right? Kind of moisture, a little chill in the air. This is going to be one of those games, and really excited for them. And in the end, I literally just told radio, right? So Thursday, Caleb Griffin wasn't even at practice. He was at a funeral, a family friend and relative, and for him to get his second walk-off field goal, it wasn't exactly a chip shot either. It was just very, very impressed with him and what he did, and super excited for that group. So happy for our Illinois fans, our AD, administration, and coaches to get a win. I know it's a long time coming, but now excited to see where we can go this week against Wisconsin.
Yeah, and that's the key. What do you turn into this, Joey? But let's dive into the game. And I want to mention Caleb Griffin, second walk-off of the season. Of course, had the one against Toledo. So 2 of the 3 wins this year for Illinois are walk-off wins. But let's be honest, he bounced back, man. He missed the 45-yard field goal earlier in the game, and you and I are wondering, does David Alano get a shot here? Because Caleb had been 4 of 7, and to make 2 more field goals in that game, one to go up 2 possessions, but then to sink that last one was massive. So it's great to see a 6-year senior resilient as the rest of the team was.
Yeah, he sat for 4 years. He talked about that after the game. He sat for 4 years and stuck it out, and here in his final year, it's been an emotional week for him with the funeral that Brett Bielema mentioned, and to come out and hit 2 game winners, one being on the road. He had a nice little black eye developing after the celebration. It was a big moment for him, and especially after that first half, that miss. You wondered. I think it would have been fair to wonder what was going to happen there. And it was telling before, and we'll get into the more details of it, before Mike Loxley called a timeout at the end of half, he was one out there after the miss to kick that field goal. Obviously, that never happened, and they kept putting him out there, and he hit the last 2. It's really big for him and big for a special teams unit that I thought was a lot better today. Better after a bad week.
I think Hugh Robertson pinned him twice inside the 10, or at least one. Inside the 5. And then Isaiah Williams, 2 great returns that the offense wasn't perfect, and it was because after 2 great returns from Isaiah Williams on punts, they weren't able to score after those. But Kenari Wilcher, 43-yard kick return as well. You saw his speed there. So, again, we're talking about complementary football. Even when the offense couldn't score there, the defense is able to stop them. So all that stuff just really came into play today, and it was good to see. That's what we want to see. But offensively, Joey, I think you hit on the key. Illinois had a competent rushing attack today. They were good on first down, especially in that first quarter. It just Caden Fagan getting 12 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards. That was so big for this offense to be able to keep Maryland a little bit on its toes so that you didn't have to get into 3rd and 10 all the time. And when they did, Illinois usually struggled, right? But Illinois was 6 of 16 on 3rd downs. Luke Altmyer made some mistakes, but made some big plays, including some big runs, the big throw to Casey Washington at the end. But I think you just saw Caden Fagan, the value of him, what you thought the value of Josh McCray was going to be, but also the value of an offensive line, Joey, that Bart Miller looked like he was challenging before the game. He was really intense when I was on the sideline on the field right before the game. That offensive line, especially in the interior, Zy Chrysler, Josh Kreutz, I thought were much more physical. That group set the tone at the start of this game, and I think that gave Illinois a chance in this game.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we have to point out the tight ends. They went in 12 and 13 personnel, and the tight ends were out there blocking, and you saw – that's an adjustment Illinois made to get there. And Caden Fagan was in the pistol a few times, allowing him to get downhill out of shotgun. And Caden Fagan, this is so stupid to say. I almost feel dumb saying it. He falls forward really well. It's an art that he has. It's not just only he has, but he falls forward well. And
the thing is,
2 or 3 yards.
Yeah, well, he's big. He's running. He's powerful. Like that. That's where the power comes into play, and it's where Chase Brown was a really strong dude for 5'10", 205 pounds, but he's not 250 pounds at 6'3". So just like you said, even falling forward, the strength to fall forward and get maybe an extra yard or two pays off. But boy, like that's the kind of, what did you call him? What did we settle on for his nickname?
He approved the Arthur Wagon.
Yes.
Yeah, even though he's from Atwood, there are not a lot of wagons in Atwood. Arthur, there are wagons, so he is on board. That's the most important thing we got out of postgame today, I think.
Yeah, you didn't want to go buggy? You went wagon?
Wagon
sounds better.
I had forgotten to ask, and you're like, did you ask? And I forgot mostly all of the ideas that we had, except for the wagons, to be honest.
Hey, if he approves, that's great. But yeah, I mean, the future looks bright. He looks every bit a 4-star prospect. Got banged up a little bit at the end, but he came out and talked to us. Didn't seem like he was favoring his shoulder or arm or anything after that, but we'll see. I mean, they're really thin there. Aiden Wofford had some tough runs as well, but Caden Fagan getting 84 yards on 19 carries, 4.4 yards per attempt, and to just have that guy at the goal line. And kudos to Barry Lunny. Brett Bielema says Barry Lunny talked him into it. As Mike Loxley calls the timeout to ice Caleb Griffin.
That's like a 20-yard kick. He tried to ice it to you guys. Bold.
On a 20-yard kick, and Barry Lunny talks him into it. And that to me is almost like Barry saying, I'm putting myself on the line here. Like I'm going to go out swinging if I'm going to go out. And to get that, you got to feel great for him. But to get that touchdown, go tie it up before the half, because it looked like Maryland was going to go up 21-7. And the defense gets that turnover, right? Gets a forced fumble from Dylan Rosiak, who's playing great. And to get that touchdown and then to turn around, get the ball at a half, and score right away, that was a huge swing for Barry Lunny in this offense and the entire Illini team. So that felt like a big moment for this offense.
It did. Look, I mean, let's be honest. Like, Brett Bielema deserves credit for listening to his offensive coordinator, because that has not been a successful spot this offense has been in. It's coming up empty there would have – you would have pinned them, right, with not a lot of time left, but it would have felt like a punch, right? It would have felt like a gut punch. And instead of taking 3 and settling for it, Brett Bielema bought what his offensive coordinator was selling. And I think there's some value to that. It's a confidence booster, I'm sure, for Barry, for the offensive line, for Caden Fagan to know that he's, all right, go get it. And they paid off with that, with the big touchdown.
Yeah, and Luke Altmyer, man, like he missed some singles today. He really did. Like he's got to complete some of those easy throws that we saw Tommy DeVito do time after time. And to be honest with you, he gave Maryland a chance to tie the game, not being able to just dump it off to Isaiah Williams. And there were several times during the game that happened. Several times early in the game, it felt like that first great drive, and then all of a sudden taking sacks, not keeping your eyes downfield, maybe missing Isaiah Williams open in the middle of the zone. But he bounced back and had some huge plays. I mean, that throw to Casey Washington was amazing. Some of the runs he had were huge for this team. So, Luke ain't perfect, but he gave you a chance to win. And, that interception wasn't on him. So I don't even put that turnover on him. So he played well enough for you to win. And I think that's what Luke Altmyer can do for you moving forward. The fact that you have a guy at the end of the game, Joey, that can drive his team like that, I think that's a good sign. Illinois hasn't had a lot of guys like that. So even if it ain't perfect, for a guy making his first career, starts this year, to have 2 drives like that against Toledo and now Maryland, that's encouraging.
Yeah, there were faults, right? You mentioned the missed passes. He took some sacks that you needed to just get rid of the football. But he and Casey Washington are developing some degree of chemistry on some of those sideline heaves. I do want to zoom out really quickly and talk about Casey Washington, because I think, like, Brett Bielema talked about him, and the numbers aren't out of this world, right? But we talk about, like, Brett Bielema talked Monday about this team. Like, yes, you lost a lot of NFL players, but you lost some voices. I think Casey Washington is stepping into a role as, like, a really important voice on this team, one that a lot of people gravitate to. You can hear it in how he speaks with us. You can hear it in how they speak about him. Like, I think it was kind of fitting for him to be the one down the sideline on that catch. But, yeah, I mean, that final drive, like, maybe that's something that can kickstart Luke. Not kickstart, that's probably not the right word, but give Luke some momentum going into this Wisconsin game. Wisconsin's going to probably have some quarterback questions with Mordecai leaving today. Like, well, I'm really interested in how that looks and how he can kind of try to build a little bit here.
Casey Washington and Pat Bryant combined for 7 catches for 121 yards today. You need that. You need those guys to make those kind of plays. Second game in a row, Pat Bryant gets a deep touchdown, wins a one-on-one, gets over the top of somebody, and is able to bring in the catch for a big play. That's what Luke Altmyer is brought here to do, and that's what Pat Bryant needs to do for this team. Because you see Isaiah makes a great play, but he gets it broken up because he's a little smaller later on in the third quarter, I believe that was. So big plays from the passing game, and that's what you get with Luke Altmyer. I do want to say, man, Mike Loxley's got to be kicking himself. Brett Bielema, like, part of good coaching is not hurting yourself and not putting your team in bad positions. You think of 3 plays with Mike Loxley, the timeout that allowed Illinois to go for it, and you have the time to think about it, talk about it, and then the onside kick to start the second half gave Illinois great field position, short field. They go down and score on that one. And there's one more. What am I missing here, Joey? There's one more mistake Mike Loxley made in this game, but you got to learn how not to lose.
Just kick the field goal, right?
And the conservative play at the end, 3rd and 8 at your 30-something, and you have Talia Tagovailoa, and you run it when you aren't able to run the ball all day. Like, I thought that was really conservative for a field goal kicker that had missed a field goal earlier in the game. Made it. Kudos to that kid. Long 48-yard field goal, right, to tie it up. But I thought that was, man, I'm Maryland. It didn't feel like he was the favorite tonight at some points.
Yeah, it was the onside kick was the most flabbergasting one to me, and I'll get into that later when we go through with our good producer Isaac Ambrose put together a list of questions. But I thought that was kind of a head-scratching moment there.
Yeah, and this defense I thought was aggressive tonight, Joey. To get Seth Coleman 3 sacks tonight. One of them wasn't blocked, but another one he was in coverage, came up, green dogged it, as Jay Lehman likes to say, and made the sack. And then the last one on a 3rd down, where Maryland was driving, they had a chance to take the lead. Just a monster play. Those are the negative plays this defense is needed. And then you get 2 forced fumbles from your linebackers and Kanena Odaluga and Dylan Rosiak, who are really emerging these last couple weeks. So kudos to Aaron Henry's defense for keeping this offense, which is really explosive, in check. The secondary, no big plays, right? It was all screen passes.
The Tyson Rooks play was one. They targeted him. They saw him out there. They targeted him. But otherwise, the bigger issue is exactly your point. They couldn't run, so they basically had passing plays that were an extension of their run game, and Illinois struggled against some of those short, quick-hitting screen passes. They settled down a little bit later, but Maryland was able to move the ball with those.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? They dialed up pressure on 3rd. Like, that's been a big topic of conversation, and it wasn't just the front 4. It was more of a front 4 today without Keith Randolph. I wasn't just them. They sent guys. They sent Clayton Bush. They sent Dylan Rosiak. They sent James Krutz. They dialed up some pressure for a team that, frankly, we hadn't seen a ton of that. And Aaron Henry, again, you see when they're aggressive like that, like it does seem to pay dividends.
Yeah, we're going to get to Isaac Ambrose's questions. Our producer put together some really good questions. But anyone else you want to shout out on the team here, Joey, that's strong? I just think the offensive line deserves more credit. I know they gave up some sacks again today. I thought some of those were on Altmyer. But I thought they brought it physically. And getting Zach Chrysler back was big. I didn't notice Hunter Whiteneck doing anything too terribly. I mean, we'll go back and watch the film with the offensive line. But I just thought they set the tone in the first quarter especially.
Yeah, I do want to point out, we've talked a lot about adjustments. Zy Chrysler really kind of pulled from his guard spot a few times to give more protection as kind of an extended tackle. I don't remember Jeremy seeing a lot of that in previous games. And the tight ends, like I thought the tight ends, you're seeing ways that they're going through to try to protect the quarterback, to try to keep him upright.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to those questions, we'll get to your questions on our live YouTube as well. We want to hear from one of our great sponsors.
For unique and comfortable Illini gear? Well, Home Field is a premium collegiate apparel based in Indianapolis that emphasizes their commitment to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. They feature a growing collection of over 150 colleges to choose from, including, of course, the University of Illinois. So go check out homefieldapparel.com because their designs are super unique because they delve into the archives and history of each school using unique logos and iconic moments to create thoughtfully designed apparel. I'm scrolling at homefieldapparel.com right now with their Illini gear, and they have 1989 Fighting Illini basketball long sleeve. They got the Flying Illini logo, the script Illinois. You can get the pants, the joggers, that 1970s script, or a nice hoodie. They got the 80s Illini football helmet, the 2004-05 Illinois basketball logo on a vintage crew neck, the Ringer retro tee, the orange Ringer tee with Fighting Illini basketball on it. Go check these guys out. Because not only is the design fantastic, but these shirts, guys, are incredibly comfortable. Home Field is all about authenticity and nostalgia. So give their site a look. It's not the typical Illinois gear you see. You can find them at homefieldapparel.com, where you can see their selection of colleges available, of course, including Illinois. And guess what? Our listeners get 15% off their first order with discount code Illini23. Again, 15% off at homefieldapparel.com with discount code Illini23. Whether you're looking for Illinois football gear for this season or Illini basketball gear for the coming season, check out homefieldapparel.com.
All right, before we get to Isaac Ambrose' questions, we got to shout out our guy, Brad, TCR Brad. Appreciate the super chat, man. Yeah, you can send super chats if you want. We appreciate you guys' support. He said, this is Joey's movie rental fund for the drive home. Any Judd Apatow comedy, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, is my favorite. Have you ever seen that movie, Joey?
I have. Thank you. Brad, I will owe you a $5 because we flew and I don't have enough time on the plane to watch a movie. But
quick flight.
Actually, I won't send you $5. I'm just going to get Casey's Pizza after Werner drops me off. So.
Yeah, this is Forgetting Sarah Marshall, my favorite comedy since Dumb and Dumber. So it's highly recommended for me. All right, let's get into some of Isaac Ambrose's questions. What was the most impressive part of the win, Joey?
Probably getting the run game going, because it was just, I think that is, I sound like a broken record and I feel bad with that, but that, like, they need that. They need to be able to run the ball because they're just not a team built to throw. They need to have some success on staying ahead of the chains and being able to not put their quarterback in very obvious passing situations with an offensive line not built to be in those situations. So I thought getting Fagan going, I thought Luke Altmyer's ability to use his legs, obviously the sacks are going to take his stats down, but he was really effective as a runner. And then Aiden Lawfrey ran hard. He is not built like Caden Fagan. Not many running backs are. But he ran really hard, and I thought that showed up today.
I'm going to go more meta here. I just think it's the resiliency. You know, they heard all the noise, right? Like, they heard all this noise. They're 0-3. They don't feel good about themselves, but they kept plugging away, and they didn't give up. I've seen teams give up on seasons, Joey. And this one's probably more talented than some of those teams that I've seen. Like, this team didn't. And I think that's credit to Brett Bielema and his staff, but it's also credit to the leadership of those players to figure it out and learn from your mistakes and to be resilient and have a chance to win. Because there were times in this game, you know, Maryland driving up 14-7 before the end of the half, and you're thinking, oh, man, this might get away from them even if they're playing a little bit better. But it didn't. They were able to win. So I'm just going to go with something vague with the resiliency. Where does this rank among
It wasn't just that, though. Like, there was a punt fest there in the fourth quarter, into third, fourth quarter, and you kept feeling like what we've seen this year, like, oh, man, one of these – like, this is still a really good Maryland offense. You felt like they were going to go, and to your point, that resiliency, like they forced Maryland into punt. Obviously, that long field goal and that drive did have some Indiana 22 vibes, but there were times in the second half that Maryland could have taken the lead, come back, and kind of made this all for naught. But, yeah, I thought there was a lot of resiliency with that too.
Yeah. All right. where does this rank among Bielema upsets? You got Penn State would be 1 with a bullet. 2 for me would be Wisconsin last year, right? Like that was an upset. You won 34-10. So for me, that would be it because it was just emphatic. And then I still would probably go Minnesota because they were ranked and they were on their way to a Big Ten West championship. And then this one?
Yeah, Penn
this team
State's
wasn't
easily number 1, right? Because Penn State kind of gave the, wait a minute, maybe something could happen. Like that is one far and away.
And it was a springboard to a competent finish to the season, being 5-7. You could sell that and the Minnesota win and the Northwestern win to recruits. You didn't end up beating Rutgers the next week, which was really disappointing, and you lost some really close games that year. Like we were going back. Purdue, you lose by a field goal or 4 points, right? On a late drive. Maryland, you lose, even though you had a 7-point lead with 5 minutes. I'm like, there's a lot of missed opportunities, but that win kind of turned it to where you took a step forward that season. That's what you're hoping this can be, but this would be 4 for me, I think.
I don't know that Wisconsin is 2 for me because I just didn't – like I understood what it meant, right? I thought the meaning was really important because it was like, oh, this team is here. But there wasn't – I don't know, maybe I'm falling in love with the narrative, right? Like this team that team wasn't kind of limping into that Wisconsin game. They limped here. Like they were not picked by anyone. They were just – there was a lot of questions about this team, long-term questions. Like the narrative was really, really sour about this team coming in. And like, yeah, Minnesota could be there. I would put this at 2. I would put this behind Penn State because I just thought it kind of changed the feeling about the season. Minnesota wasn't an empty calorie upset, but like it didn't propel them to a bowl game. I don't know that this one will either, but it had a big sigh of relief to this one.
It probably – well, for me, it's just Wisconsin was an upset, and it was just so impressive, and it led to such a great month of Illinois football last October. It probably depends on what comes of it, and we'll dive into that here in a little bit. We'll talk about that, people. I know you want to. What did you see schematically that seemed to improve the O-line and defensive pressure? You mentioned the Zach Chrysler pulling a little bit. I mean, offensive line, I got to dive into it a little bit more, but just going back and watching a few plays on replay, I thought they were more physical.
Tight ends help too.
Tight ends help, surely. I think Caden Fagan helps, but I just thought they were more physical at the point of attack, and you just saw the offensive line recreating the line of scrimmage. Even if it's a yard, like they are giving Caden Fagan room to get down a hill, and it just felt like at least that first quarter especially, I think they had 60 of their rushing yards in the first quarter. They were just getting downhill.
Yeah, I agree with that. And defensively, I thought they – to get more pressure. Obviously, Aaron Henry dialed up some blitzes at the right times, and I thought that they stopped the run. And they were able to put Maryland in passing situations to let your outside backers go up and make a play. Maryland averaged 3rd and 6.5 today. And Illinois was 3rd and 4.8. That is, I'd have to go back and look. That's totally flipped from what we've seen, at least as I recall it this season. So I just think being able to stop the run, putting Maryland in uncomfortable situations, like that helped them dial some things up. And Aaron Henry knows kind of when to push those buttons. You could make an argument he should do it more, but today he timed it up very well.
Yeah, and it was probably the timing of some of those things, right? Like they dropped into coverage on 3rd downs. Like they didn't always blitz on 3rd downs, but they seemed like Aaron felt like he could confuse Talia Tagovailoa, and Brett Bielema said afterwards he like tells you what he's doing before the play. So it felt like they were just coached up well. Like they knew what to expect out of this Maryland offense. You got to give credit to the defensive coaching staff for that. Illini stand out of the game. He says besides Fagan, but I made Seth Coleman my star of the game.
It's fair. I mean, Seth Coleman, 3 sacks, needed. Like they were very needed. I think all 2 of the 3 came on 3rd down.
One of them came on 2nd and 6 that I think just made it a really tough conversion. They might have gotten it with the screen pass now that I think about it going back. But the one 3rd down in 4th quarter, I think with 9 minutes left, that just killed the drive. That looked pretty promising to start. So it was just a major, major play. Illinois just hasn't had those negative plays on defense enough. And to get 3 in one game after he didn't have one all season was monstrous.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's probably him. Dylan Rosiak gets an honorable mention. He is playing really, really good football. Someone asked if Tariq Barnes played. he was listed as questionable. He went through everything that we saw, but I don't remember seeing him out there on the field.
I don't think he was healthy, but I do think he's been passed up.
I think Dylan Rosiak's playing really. Dylan Rosiak's put together. So is Kanino DeLuga a few weeks of some really, really good football.
And they're getting the ball out. They're punching the ball out, man. They got some Jake Hansen to him right now. So that's important for a defense that has struggled to get takeaways this year. I also want to shout out Tyler Strain. 2 great pass breakups. He had a bad week last week. He didn't start today. Zach Tobey started. You saw Tyson Rooks come in at one play, and it really hurt him because they attacked him. They're attacking those freshmen, but, man, he made some great plays. I think it was both Caden Prather, who's 6'4", 200 pounds, former 4-star prospect. Tyler Strain's 5'9", and he made phenomenal plays on the ball. So kudos to Tyler Strain making 2 big plays like that.
Absolutely, yeah. You wondered, right, when Zach Tobey came out, you're like, what's this mean for Tyler Strain? And he got dinged up, didn't look very good when he left the field, injured. Came back, and he had a huge pass breakup. The secondary played pretty well against this Maryland offense that can really put up some yards and move the ball. Secondary really delivered today.
Player series that created the momentum shift, I would go with the Dylan Rosiak forced fumble turning into a touchdown at the end of the half. Obviously, Mike Loxley timeout, but then you get the ball back and you onside kick it, and Illinois scores. Like that whole thing, that whole 5-6 minutes just completely shifted the game because I thought Maryland was about to go up 21-7.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of build on that. I thought it was the onside kick that Maryland inexplicably, in my opinion, tried. Illinois goes, they get it, they go down, and they score a touchdown. Nice pass from Luke Altmyer. He avoided some pressure, found Isaiah Williams. Maryland moves the ball. They miss a 45-yard field goal. Illinois, Caleb Griffin comes in and hits a 40-yarder, and it's a 10-point swing to build on the touchdown at the end of the first half. That was a 17-0 stretch of football for Illinois.
All right, let's get to this question people want to talk about. Does this change your thoughts on Illinois making a bowl game?
Oh, boy.
Sure. The path is there.
The path is more reasonable, right? Like we have to say, like we talk about Penn State 21 vibes. They came and laid an egg against Rutgers the following week. So I need to see how they build on this. But Iowa doesn't look unbelievable. Wisconsin doesn't look unbelievable. Wisconsin's got quarterback questions, I think. And we have to see what more comes of Tanner Mordecai. If you were watching and you maybe have seen anything, please let us know. We've been kind of
– Said he couldn't throw. I saw that at some point. He had a wrist injury.
A little bit. So if there's an update, we're missing it, please fill us in. But otherwise, Indiana, Northwestern, Minnesota, I mean, the path is much more reasonable. I don't know. I need to see how they build on it, but the path is there and the path is reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, let's listen. At 2-5, right? Like they got to win 4 of their last 5. Nothing we'd seen from this team would have made us think that, even if they lost a close one today. It's just the math is getting really difficult. Winning 3 of the last 5 in this Big Ten West, Iowa scored 12 points. Like Iowa, they are inevitable, it feels like, in this Big Ten West. That's why I picked them, because even when they can't score points, they have great defense, great special teams. Wisconsin looks beatable if Illinois plays like this tonight next week and if Tanner Mordecai is injured, right? And then Minnesota doesn't scare you. It's just they don't beat themselves a lot, but they're not like overly talented. They're usually strong in the trenches, but they've lost a lot of guys. And then you got to beat Northwestern. You got to beat Indiana. Those are bad football teams, but you weren't able to beat Nebraska. So I'm not going to say today, like, oh, yeah, definitely going to a bowl game. But the path is so clear. And if Illinois plays this way, Joey, they could win 4 or 5 games. If they just give themselves a chance, get out of their own way, and maybe they learned how to win a little bit today. Because there's a lot of young guys that haven't been a part of a lot of Big Ten wins, freshmen that haven't, sophomores that didn't play a lot last year. So I think that was really important to get some confidence that you can go on the road, get wins, and just get a Big Ten win. But if they play like this today, clean, complimentary football, let the other team make mistakes, and the other team does make mistakes, and you capitalize off them, sure, they're going to find a way to be in games at the end and win some of them.
Yeah, you force teams to make mistakes too. I think Illinois, at its best, does that. I feel like we'd be really kind of too in the moment to say, absolutely, mark your tickets for a bowl game right now, because we still have 6 games of evidence that we haven't seen them put up that consistent momentum. But
this is the outlier.
That's right. To see a road, to know what's in front of you, and to just feel some sort of confidence, right? If you're this program, to these players to feel something, I think that can go a long way. But I'm so curious what this looks like next week before the bye week, which is very needed, by the way, in terms of the nicks and bruises this team has.
Yeah. Isaac asked, who won the picks to click? I had Isaiah Adams and Kanena Odeluga. You had Tip Ryman and Xavier Scott.
Congrats on your win, both fronts.
Thank you.
Not that I thought Xavier Scott was bad, but
you called it, Joey. You called it without picking them, actually.
Someone said if you were that confident you didn't pick them to cover, whatever.
Yeah. All right, let's get some of the questions on the chat. Appreciate you guys. You can send those in, and we'll get to some of those before we get out of here and get back to DC.
It is raining really bad, so hopefully that Uber. Oh boy.
What?
Well, I just see the rain. I'm like, wow, who would want to drive in this? And I thought, hopefully person
somebody.
Get us from
Hopefully somebody. Props to the young running backs, Joe says, for helping in the pass coverage. Aiden had a huge block to allow the first touchdown pass. Yeah, it wasn't clean all night, but Aiden, who had struggled in pass blocking, had a phenomenal block on that Pat Bryant touchdown. That's what you need. That's what you worry about with younger guys. Caden Fagan was pretty solid, did get blowed up on one of them that led to a Luke Altmyer sack. So it's not always on the offensive line. Caden struggled on that one, on that blitz. But, yeah, those guys gave you enough to win today. So kudos to Aiden Lawfrey. A big, reception on that final drive. I love getting him in space. I think you see the speed and quickness when he gets in space. And he had a couple tough runs in the first quarter as well. And we all talked about Fagan. So kudos to those guys.
Yeah, especially for them being young to go out there. Like we've seen some good experience backs struggle in pass pro. Chase Brown, Reggie Corbin, really good backs at Illinois, struggled at times in pass pro. These guys did too. But, I mean, it's to see those guys young and step into some of those key moments is big.
Jack, this was Bielema ball. I don't know why it took till week 7 because your offensive line had struggled. And today –
and your defense had struggled early.
Yeah, but you think of, besides Josh Kreutz, that was a monstrous offensive line out there today. Hunter Whitenack at left guard, switching positions, which is not always easy to go from the right side to the left side. And then Zy Chrysler looked healthier. Like he just looked a little healthier, and those guys looked more physical today. So Maryland's defensive front is not great, Joey, but there's talent up front. And I thought that was the big key. Like it's a lot easier when you get good blocking.
Absolutely, yeah, and to not face deficits. You can't play Bielema ball when you're down 17 at the end of the first half. It's hard. You need complementary football early to be able to kind of play that Bielema ball, I guess we'll call it, in that middle part of the game.
Bennett, what's your opinion on why Luke can't go under center? It is his preference, or Lunny's. Joey, I'll let you answer that because we did see Luke Altmyer go under center on a 3rd and short, and it was a toss to Caden Fagan. Loved it.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of your interior offensive line, which had struggled, and it's probably doesn't help that Luke Altmyer is a fairly slender quarterback. I mean, I would imagine it's a combination of both. That they went to it. You're starting to see them slowly bring it in a little bit more. Obviously, people would like to see it more. But Brett Bielema said when I asked him about it, I think after the Nebraska game, like if you can't do it, they're not just going to run out under center just to do it, right? And I saw maybe a compromise with the pistol to get the back going downhill, get Caden Fagan going downhill. It just doesn't seem like that's something they're entirely comfortable with right now.
Bennett also asked, what do you think the running back room looks like when Love comes back? Fagan looks good. I think Reggie Love would play, no doubt. But I think him and Fagan would be the top 2 running backs, and they'd rotate in. I'd like to see Fagan continue to get 10-plus touches, and I think Love would get 10-plus touches, and that's what you want. That's what they were kind of planning on coming into the season. I just don't think they planned on Caden Fagan obviously being part of that.
Yeah, I think there's still space. Like maybe someone wonder who's going to start. I don't know that it matters. I think it's distribution, handoff distribution. Kind of those carries you thought were going to go to Josh McCray when the season began are going to be absorbed by Caden Fagan, if not a few more. And then Aiden Lawfrey, to me, is the 3rd back, the change of pace guy who can go out there. But I don't think Reggie Love is out of this rotation, right? When he gets back, he's going to be a part of it. And he's shown some flashes this year, being able to be a good back. And maybe it moves him into a more complementary role. And I don't mean as a backup role, but, he doesn't have to shoulder 17, 18 carries a game, I think, in an ideal world.
Yeah, we had questions about Caden's injury. I don't know if any of us asked him, but he
didn't. He talked to us.
Yeah, he talked to us, which usually is a good sign. He was going to the trainer right after he talked to us. I went right to the trainer. But, yeah, he was kind of holding his arm still when he came off, but he was moving around. He didn't have any sling or anything like that. So we'll follow up on Monday. Usually it takes a little bit of time figure that out. But Illinois is banged up, Joey. That is one concern with this team. Keith Randolph did not play today. He left last game with an injury, came back, but certainly didn't seem to heal up this week. And then Reggie Love obviously out with the ankle.
Malik Elsie had a hip pointer.
Malik Elsie got a hip pointer this week in practice. So it's a team that obviously has already had some season-ending injuries in some key areas. And it's a battle of attrition, man. We're seeing it throughout the Big Ten West. And I don't think Illinois is any different. Some people have tweeted at me like, why all these injuries? It's football. Like this is what happens.
They largely avoided the injury bug a year ago. Like they fell on the, I don't want to say the lucky side, but the right side of not losing a bunch of guys to injury. Out the secondary got them late,
especially in the trenches, right? Like in the trenches, They stayed healthy.
The bye week is late this year. Obviously, we've talked a lot about that. We recognize it. That is a pretty important week to get through Wisconsin, which is probably going to be a physical game. Then you get a bye week to rest up and get some of these guys just a little bit more time.
Jake asks, why do you think the Illini went from being completely uncompetitive to competitive in 1 week? What changed in your opinion? Listen, I don't think the scheme changed all that much. There were some wrinkles. We saw some wrinkles throughout that helped. We did see some offensive struggles that we can bring up here, but I thought it was execution, Joey. The team looked like it's learned from its mistakes, and they kept their nose down, learned from it, and played cleaner. Like I hate to – maybe we'll ask Jay on Monday if there's something big. I didn't see anything huge schematically, but they were a little bit more aggressive on key situations, it felt like today. And offensively, they showed a couple wrinkles, a little bit more 12 and 13 personnel, but I didn't think it was anything we haven't seen. I just thought it was better execution by the players.
Yeah, I'm with you. The offensive line played better. They were able to run the ball. They got off the field on third down. Like things that just haven't been consistent, they were able to do.
Yeah. Somebody asked me, what about Anchorman? Or what was the other one they put out there? Oh, Step Brothers. Yeah, those are up there. This is my personal favorite. I love Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I'm a huge Jason Segel fan. The Dracula musical is amazing in that. Also a big Mila Kunis fan. And Russell Brand, despite all of his whatever you think of him personally, he's so good in that movie. So I'm just that's Step Brothers and Anchorman would certainly be top 5 since Dumb and Dumber for me.
This is what we're doing right now, huh?
Yes. I had to comment on it.
Okay. I'm going through I'm done with you. Thank you for your contribution.
You don't want to do movie rankings? Everyone wants to talk movie rankings. All right. You got anything else, Joey, before we get out of here?
I'm scrolling through the comments. There was a good one. I think it's fair, just the way that Maryland was able to use the screen game as an effective complement to their run game. Should Illinois try to do that a little bit more? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it reminded me of last year. Remember what hurt Illinois all of last year?
Right.
They were so aggressive that screen passes hurt them. And that's okay, though, as long as you can tackle and you're not giving up those big plays deep. And as long as you are getting home and creating some negative plays, whether it's turnovers or sacks, you got to have a weakness somewhere. And these other teams and coaches are good. So they kind of had a nickel and dime Illinois. And then they make a couple mistakes or they get a sack or they have a penalty. And, those drives are killed. So I'll give Aaron Henry credit. Like if that's what they got to give up, that's what they got to give up. But I thought it led to his team being more aggressive and his coverage deep was much better because Maryland took some deep shots and Tower Strain or the zone really covered those things up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Illinois can work that in. I think there's other things maybe to work in before trying to shoehorn a screen pass in. I'd like to see them get a little more comfortable under center.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. They didn't get beat over the top today, which was huge.
Yeah, Illinois 3 and outs after that field goal. Any concerns there, Joey? I know people didn't like the pass on 2nd and 7. Listen, like you got to be able to complete a pass that's like a 5-yard dump off to Isaiah Williams. Like you got to trust your quarterback. You got to keep these teams off balance. And let's be honest, Illinois wanted to score. Like, they really wanted to score there. So I don't know if just running the football over and over again. Like the run wasn't as successful late in the game because Maryland knew they kind of really stacked the box at times against Cape.
They knew they wanted to be a baller, right?
Yeah.
Like they knew they wanted to run it and kind of wear out the clock there. So yeah, I mean, I understand. I do want to point out. I mean, I think the linebacker played Jeremy 16 tackles and 2 forced fumbles from Dylan Rosiak and Otaluga. That's huge. That's huge without your team captain, full health to be able to go out there and continue to stack these plays. Those two came in. That was a fun story in the fall camp, right? Is those two were kind of coming up and fighting for spots. Now you're seeing them both out there effectively together, and just good development by Andy Boo and that defensive staff.
Initial guess on the spread next week. Wisconsin at home, so you get 3 points there. Wisconsin's been a better team. Depends probably on what we hear on Tanner Mordecai, but 6 Wisconsin? That sound right? 5, like something like that? Wisconsin should be favored.
Yeah, they'll be favored. I don't think it'll be very, very, it won't be a huge spread, especially, we'll see what happens with Mordecai, but 3 at home.
I'm not a gambler, but we should ask Piper on that. But Wisconsin will be favored, but I think last week we would have kind of came in thinking, oh, they lose at Maryland, and then all of a sudden they're 10-point underdogs at home to Wisconsin.
Well,
the team they beat by 24 last year.
I do want to ask this because I thought about, I don't know, I should have asked this earlier when it was more on topic. What is it about Bielema teams that we've seen that they're able to go on the road and do this when they don't really have any reason to do this? I don't know. I think those guys believe in his messaging. I don't know. It's very interesting to me that this team doesn't have a fold button. It appears under Bielema.
I'm trying to think of his record, Big Ten record on the road. Last year he was 3-1, 3-2 on the road in the Big Ten. It's for an 8-5 team you would expect. The year prior, they won 2-2 on the road in the Big Ten. That's pretty good. And now you're 1-1 on the road in the Big Ten, so he's above 500 in the Big Ten on the road.
Yeah, I think he finds a way to create consistency for his guys throughout the week, and I think they just buy into his messaging, man, and they buy into the coaching staff's messaging. I mean, they're going to win every road game, but there is something to be said when your backs are against the wall and kind of the arrows are flying about the program, about position groups, and they go and you get the heck away from it and they win. It's an interesting study.
I think this was good for everybody. It was great for that locker room, Joey. It's great for this fan base. All you get to have relevant football. You can get excited about it, that maybe this season we can still build. If you can get to 6-6, maybe if you even better than that, right? All of a sudden you can sustain that success. So they've opened that door right now. And to be honest with you, it's better for us because people are more interested in what we have to say, and we get to talk to happy people. And we talked to some happy people today, so we'll have plenty of content.
You got to talk movies.
I did.
What a win.
I don't get to talk movies with Joey because he doesn't watch movies.
I don't have time to sit there for 2 hours.
Yet you'll watch 8 episodes of TV shows.
All right, that's it for the Illini Inquirer podcast.
Joey called it, but not really. Illinois gets a victory in Maryland. 27-24 walk-off winner for Caleb Griffin. Big game next week. Wisconsin homecoming attendance should be a lot better after today. Probably way better than what it was today at Maryland because people did not show up for the wet weather today. But we will have plenty of content at Illini Inquirer. I'll be writing about what this means for the season. Joey will be writing about the Arthur Wagon.
And Caleb Griffin.
And Caleb Griffin. 2 Central Illinois products they'll be chatting about. That's why it's important to recruit locally and recruit in the state. Those kids make a big impact on your program. For Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Werner. Everybody, thanks for listening on the live YouTube. Hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe to us. Hit the notifications bell. And for all of you listening on the podcast, appreciate you. Leave a 5-star rating and a review if you can. But everybody have a great night. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.